Alright guys, today we're going to be doing lesson 45, dividing a decimal by a whole number. This is pretty easy, and I've already taught this in class, so this is kind of after the fact, and then I'm making this video probably for the people who missed class on Friday due to sickness or whatever else. So I really enjoy making these movies of myself teaching. Some people got that joke. So let's go ahead and start. Alright, so here's example number 1. 4.2 divided by 3. You guys know how to do division. There are 5 steps we're talking about. Divide is our first step. Multiply is our second step. Then after that, we subtract. Then we check. And I'll talk about that step more in a second. I kind of want to emphasize that. And then the last step is you bring down. So how many times will 3 go into 4? 1 time. You guys know this. 1 times 1. You do a little multiplication sign right there. Sometimes that'll help you remember the second step, which is 1 times 3, which will be 3. You put the 3 directly below the 4. Subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. Alright, then this next step is check. We need to check to make sure that our remainder right here is less than our divisor. And if that is true, then you can continue, which 1 is less than 3, so we can continue. Then I bring down the 2. 3 will go into 12 4 times. Notice, even though this is 4.2 or 4 and 2, excuse me, even though this is 4 and 2 tenths, you just divide it like it's a regular number. Act like the decimal isn't even there. Okay? So 3 will go to 4 12 times. 4 times 3 is 12. Subtract 12 minus 12, no remainder. Alright, at this point, then you think about decimal placement. Divide like normal, nothing different. And then at this point, you think about decimal placement. So if the decimal is right here, you need to bring it straight up so that it's in between the ones place and the tenths place. Alright, so your answer is 1.4. Very easy. The only new thing that you're learning, you guys already know how to divide. The only new thing that you're learning is moving the decimal point 1 place up. So I almost asked, is there any questions? But obviously you can't respond, and I can't. This isn't that interactive. It's just YouTube. So let's go ahead and move on to the next problem. So say. Okay, so for this one, the remainder is 0. When we're done, say we have a remainder. That poses an interesting question, because notice there's a decimal right up here, 4 tenths, and you can't put like a fraction and a decimal. You can't mix those things together. So, what happens when there's a remainder? Let's go ahead and do another problem that's slightly different. Let's go 4.3. Or 4 and 3 tenths. Alright, so before I do this problem, I'm going to draw your attention to what we learned yesterday, or last lesson, depending on when you learned it. Alright, so 3 tenths. Just look at this number right here, 3 tenths. We learned in lesson 44 that I can add a 0. Now the rule is, any decimal or number to the right of the decimal, I can add zeros after the non-zero number. And this is like enlarging a decimal. Instead of reducing a fraction, or reducing a decimal, that would be erasing zeros after the last non-zero number. So I can enlarge this. I can enlarge it as much as I want. So there's 3,000 10,000ths, which is the same as 3 tenths. Cover all those. 3 tenths. Right there. Or I can add those in and make it 300 10,000ths. Alright, so you can add as many zeros as you want. That's important when we get up here, and you'll see why in just a second. Alright, 3 will go into 4 how many times? 1 time. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract is 1. 1 is less than 3. That checks out, so then I'm going to bring down my 3. How many times will 3 go into 13? 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. And I'm going to subtract. Now, instead of having no remainder, I have a remainder. And you you cannot bring this up here and make a fraction out of it. Okay? You cannot do that because the decimal point comes straight up, and we don't mix decimals and fractions. You can convert a decimal to a fraction or vice versa, but you cannot mix decimals and fractions. So, and what do I do, Mr. Mazum? Okay, look right here. You know that you can add zeros to the right of a non-zero number in the decimal land, so to speak. Okay? So I'm going to add a 0 right here. Once I add a 0, I can do the bring down step. So I'm going to bring this 0 straight down. How many times will 3 go into 10? Now I can do these problems. 3 will go into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract. You have 1 left over. Okay? I can add another 0. Bring another one down. Okay? 3 times 3 is 9. It looks like it's going to repeat. So I'm going to put a repeating bar above that 3. So that is your answer. 1.4333333333. No matter what, the fraction problem is going to keep going. I'm going to run out of whiteboard. You could go all the way to China, and you could still have 3s. Okay? So, this is basically lesson 45. I'm going to do a couple problems off the homework, and hopefully that makes sense. I think this is a really easy lesson. Alright, thanks for watching, and let's do a couple homework problems. Alright, so let's do a couple problems off the homework. Number 1 from the homework says, what fraction must 5/3 be multiplied to get 1? So I like writing these problems out. If you have a word problem, write it as a number problem. So you're asking what fraction, there's some fraction, must be multiplied, must 5/3 be multiplied by to equal 1. And remember, whenever you have a number or a fraction and it multiplies by something and the answer is 1, the number it was multiplied by has to be the reciprocal. So the answer is 3/5. Remember what a reciprocal is. A reciprocal is the fraction is just flipped. So 5/3, what's the reciprocal of 5/3? 3/5. That means whatever's on top goes on bottom, and whatever's on bottom goes on top. So let's do a couple more problems. Okay, a couple people were asking about problem number 3. Cindy made 2/3 of her shots. This is talking about basketball. She shot a total of 24 times, so she was shooting the ball a lot of times in this basketball game. How many points did she make if each shot equals 2 points? So how many shots did she make? She shot 24 times, but she didn't make a basket 24 times. Okay, so we need to find out how many shots she made. Okay, so first we have to find out how many shots we made. Well, that's 2/3 of 24, and there's 2 ways to do this. 2/3 of 24. Okay, we used to do 24 divided by the denominator. 24 divided by 3 is 8, and then multiply 8 by 2, which would be 16. But I want you guys to start doing it a different way now that you guys know how to multiply fractions. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2/3, and what does of mean? Of is multiply. 2/3 of 24. Now we have a fraction times a whole number, which is hard, unless you know a trick. And that trick is take 24 and put it over 1. Okay, now we're going to take 2 times 24, which is 48. 3 times 1 is 3. Now we have 48 divided by 3. So if you're going to take 48 divided by 3, that is going to be 1 times 3, subtract 1, bring down your 8. 6 times 3 is 18, no remainder. Our answer is 16. Okay, so she made 16 baskets. That means the ball went through the hoop 16 times during the game due to Cindy's efforts. Alright, now you're going to take 16 and you're going to multiply it by 2. Why do we multiply it by 2? Because each time a shot goes through a basket, it's 2 points. And she did that 16 times, so that's 16 times 2. So if you multiply that out, you're going to get 32 points. So she made 32 points. Okay, I had a couple of people ask me about number 8. We have an equation. So draw a line at the equal sign. Okay, there's 2 sides to every equation. So algebra has to be done the same way. I know a lot of people are like, well, I know a different way to do it. Trust me, if you learn the algebra method, your life will be a lot easier in the future. All right, so square root of 36. What number times what number equals 36? And that number has to be the same number. And of course, that is 6. So I'm going to write the answer directly below square root of 36. Once I do that step, I bring everything down. Minus m equals 2 3/10. Now I have a regular algebra problem. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. Okay? 6 minus 6, that. And the reason why I'm going to subtract 6 is what's the opposite of a positive 6? Well, subtracting 6. I do that so that cancels out, and all I have left is a negative m. Bring down the equal sign, bring down the 2. Actually, we're not bringing down 2/3. If you subtract 6 from this side, you got to be fair, and subtract 6 from this side. Now, I don't want to get into negative numbers too much yet, so I don't actually know why why your book put this problem on here, so it's kind of difficult, which is why I'm showing you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 6 minus 2/3 just to find the difference between these two numbers. Okay? And I know my answer is going to be negative, because if you have 2 3/10 of a dollar, which would be $2.30, and you spend $6, your answer is gonna be negative. Okay, but how much negative is it? So in order to find out the difference, you're gonna have to subtract those two. Okay, so I'm gonna borrow from the 6. That's gonna be 5, and I'm gonna use 10/10 as my 1. All right. So 10/10 minus 3/10 is gonna be 7/10. This problem is intense. Intense. That was a really bad corny joke. I apologize. I'm not too sorry, though. 5 minus 2 is 3. So your answer is going to be negative 3 7/10. Now, in algebra, whatever you do to one side, you got to do the other, just like we did up here. Subtract 6, subtract 6. So on this side, I am going to multiply it by a negative 1, which makes it positive m. Multiply this side by negative. If you multiply this side by negative 1, you got to multiply this side by negative 1. So it's going to be m is going to be equal to a positive 3 7/10. If you want to check it, all you have to do is take 3 7/10 and sub it in for m. So what is 6 minus m, which I can sub that in for 3 7/10. Borrow it. So that'll be 10/10. My son Zachy is playing with Legos. 10/10 minus 7/10 is 3/10. Remember, that becomes a 5. 5 minus 3 is 2. So our answer is 2 3/10, which checks out, which means this is your correct answer. Alright, so hopefully that makes sense. My son Israel wants to say something really quick. He gave me this extra marker.
Thank you for watching my dad's video. Let me out of jail. No way.
He loves Legos. Alright, you guys have a good weekend. I will talk to you later.